The soft beeping of the communication console woke Maya Patel from her light sleep. She blinked and sat up straight in her chair. The night shift at the Galactic Coalition outpost was usually quiet. Too quiet. Maya had been the communications specialist for 3 years now, and she knew that unexpected signals during the station's artificial night cycle were rarely good news. She tapped the flashing icon on her screen. A stream of unknown characters scrolled across her display. The translation software struggled to make sense of it. "Computer, identify source," Maya said, her fingers already working to clean up the signal. "Unknown origin. Signal contains patterns, consistent with distress protocols," the computer replied. Maya frowned. She reached for her comm unit. "Lieutenant Patel to Captain Graves. Sir, I think you should see this." 10 minutes later, Captain Ethan Graves stood behind Maya's chair, his eyes narrowed as he studied the message. At 53, Ethan had seen more of the galaxy than most humans. The silver in his dark hair and the lines around his eyes told stories of 20 years in space. "Any progress with the translation?" he asked. "The core message is becoming clearer," Maya said. "It's definitely a distress call from a species called the Nelvari. They're under attack by something called the Drakari Empire. The signal is coming from about 30 light-years beyond the Coalition's border." The door to the communications center slid open. Ambassador Shirl Vaughn glided into the room. The Centaurians' 4 eyes blinked independently as they took in the scene. Their skin shimmered blue under the station lights. "I was informed of unusual communications," Shirl Vaughn said. Their voice was a musical hum that the translator converted to flat, precise words. "Is there a problem, Captain Graves?" Ethan straightened his back. "We've received a distress signal from beyond Coalition space. A species called the Nelvari is requesting help against an aggressive force." Zerlvon moved closer to the screen. "The Nelvari. Yes, I know of them. A peaceful species. Farmers and artists mostly." They made a dismissive gesture with one of their 4 arms. "But they are not Coalition members, and the signal comes from outside our territory." "They're asking for help," Ethan said. "They say they're facing extinction." "Many species face difficult times," Cheryl Vaughn replied. "The Coalition's non-interference policy is clear. We cannot involve ourselves in frontier conflicts." Maya kept working on the signal. Something about it bothered her. The patterns were complex, layered. Most distress calls were simple, direct. This one contained hidden data. "Sir," she said, interrupting the building argument between Ethan and the ambassador. "There's more to this message. I found encrypted data packets." The room fell silent as Maya worked. Minutes passed as her fingers flew over the controls. Then new images appeared on the screen. Recordings, data, evidence. "Oh my God," Maya whispered. The images showed cities burning. Camps filled with thin, frightened aliens. Mass graves, systematic extermination. "This isn't just war," Ethan said quietly. "This is genocide." Ambassador Zerl Vaughn studied the images with all 4 eyes. "Regrettable, but still outside Coalition jurisdiction. The Council's position will not change." "These people are dying," Ethan said, his voice tight. "Many die in conflict, Captain. That is the nature of an imperfect galaxy." Zerl Vaughn turned to leave. "I will file a report with the Council, but do not expect action." The Nelvari knew the risks of settling in unprotected space. When the door closed behind the ambassador, Maya looked up at her captain. "Sir, what do we do?" Ethan's face had hardened. Into a mask she recognized, the look of a man making a difficult decision. "Maya, I need you to keep working on this signal. Get everything you can from it. Locations, numbers, details about these Drakari." He walked to the door. "And don't file this in the main system yet, Captain. Just trust me." Kevin Rhodes was drinking coffee in the station's mess hall when Ethan found him. The chief engineer looked up from his tablet. "You're up early, Captain," Kevin said. "I need a secure channel to Earth Command," Ethan said without preamble. "One, that won't show up in the station logs." Kevin's smile faded. "That's against about 6 different regulations." "I know. Coalition observers would call it espionage." "I know that too." Kevin studied his friend's face. This about that signal that came in? Ethan nodded. Give me an hour, Kevin said. My office, I'll make it happen. Exactly 1 hour later, Ethan sat in Kevin's cluttered office, facing a secure terminal. The connection to Earth Command was routing through maintenance channels disguised. As System Diagnostics Admiral Olivia Martinez's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired, her brown eyes instantly alert despite the early hour at Earth Command. Captain Graves, she said. This is unexpected. I apologize for the unusual contact method, Admiral. Ethan leaned forward. We've received a distress signal from a non-coalition species called the Nelvari. They're being systematically exterminated by an aggressive force called the Drakari Empire. He transmitted the data Maya had decoded. The coalition has invoked the non-interference policy. They won't help. Admiral Martinez was silent as she reviewed the information. Her expression gave nothing away. You're asking Earth to act alone? She finally said. I'm asking us to do what's right. Ethan replied. What we'd want someone to do for us. Martinez nodded slowly. You understand what this means? If we act, we reveal capabilities we've kept hidden since joining the coalition. There will be diplomatic consequences. I understand. But those people are dying while we debate politics. Another long silence filled the connection. Then Martinez straightened in her chair. Transmit all the data you have. I'll take this to the Council. She paused. And Captain? Delete this conversation from your records. You never contacted me. Understood, Admiral. The screen went dark. Ethan sat back, suddenly aware of how fast his heart was beating. Did I just hear you commit treason against the coalition? Kevin asked from the doorway. Probably, Ethan admitted. Kevin nodded. Good. Never did trust those non-interference rules. 3 days passed. Maya continued to analyze the Nelvari signal, finding more details about the attacks. Ethan filed the required reports with the coalition, but didn't mention his contact with Earth Command. Ambassador Zerlvan informed them that, as expected, the Council would take no action. On the 4th day, Ethan was working late in his office when his private terminal chimed. The message was text-only, origin masked. It read simply, Deathworlder response protocol activated. Fleet deploys in 6 hours. History will remember the Nelvari, and the Drakari will remember us. At that exact moment, throughout the Sol system, massive ships were powering up. Ships that the coalition believed were research vessels, mining, platforms, and civilian transports. Ships that had been built in secret, hidden in plain sight. Humanity had played the role of peaceful newcomers to the galactic community for over a century. Now, the mask was coming off. The Deathworlder fleet was awakening. Admiral Olivia Martinez stood at the viewport of Earth Command headquarters on Mars, watching as ships across the solar system began to move. For over a century, humanity had hidden its true strength. Now, massive warships emerged from their disguises as mining platforms and research stations. Their outer civilian shells fell away to reveal weapons and armor underneath. Fleet status report, she said, her voice calm, despite the weight of her decision. Commander Daniel Wright checked his display. 87% of vessels report. Ready for jump, Admiral. The rest will follow within the hour. Olivia nodded. At 57, she had spent her entire career preparing for a day she had hoped would never come. The day when humanity would reveal its true nature to the galaxy. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, her uniform perfect as always. But new lines had appeared around her eyes in the last few days. The coalition has already noticed unusual activity, Daniel said. 3 of their observation ships have moved closer to monitor our fleet movements. Let them watch, Olivia replied. By the time they realize what's happening, we'll be gone. The door to the command center slid open. Dr. Samantha Powell entered carrying a tablet. The xenobiologist had been working non-stop since the Nelvari signal arrived. Admiral, I've compiled everything we know about the Nelvari, Samantha said. They evolved on a low-gravity world with a dense atmosphere. Physically, they're no match for the Drakari. Their technology is mainly agricultural and medical. And the Drakari? Olivia asked. Predatory species. Pack hunters originally. They've conquered 6 systems in the last 20 years. No one challenged them because they stayed outside Coalition space. Samantha's face darkened. The Nelvari were just in the wrong place. General Alan Parker joined them at the viewport. Unlike many on the military council, he had long argued that humanity should be open about its combat capabilities. Now he watched with satisfaction as the fleet assembled. The first wave is preparing to jump, he said. The Coalition is demanding an explanation for our activities. What cover story are we using? Olivia asked. Emergency training exercises, Alan replied. They don't believe it, but it buys us time. Daniel's console beeped. Admiral, we're getting a live feed from Commander Wright's advance team. They've made contact with Nelvari survivors. The main screen lit up. It showed a human scout team in a burned village. Around them stood thin, frightened aliens with pale blue skin and large, sad eyes. The Nelvari were tall but looked fragile, with 4 arms and delicate features. They stared at the humans with a mixture of fear and hope. The Drakari will return in 3 days, reported the team leader. They're systematically destroying all Nelvari settlements. We've counted 23 concentration camps on this moon alone. Olivia's jaw tightened. Understood. Hold your position. The fleet is coming. When the transmission ended, she turned to her officers. I want every captain in the fleet to see that footage. They need to understand what we're fighting for. In Tuar, the ship preparation bay engineers and technicians worked around the clock. Weapons systems that had been kept dormant for decades came online. Armor plating that had been disguised as civilian hull materials was now exposed. The true face of Earth's fleet was revealing itself. One of the largest ships, the battlecruiser Horizon, prepared for its first real combat mission. Captain Greg Wilson walked through its corridors checking on his crew. Most had never seen actual combat. They had trained in simulations, but now they faced the real thing. Captain, called a young lieutenant. We've received the mission briefing. Is it true? Are we really going against Coalition policy? Greg stopped walking. Around him, other crew members paused to listen. The Coalition has a policy of non-interference, he said. Humanity has a different policy. We don't stand by while innocent people are slaughtered. He looked around at their faces. We've hidden what we are for 100 years. We played nice, followed their rules. But there are times when rules must be broken. Back at Earth Command, Olivia addressed the assembled fleet captains via secure channel. Their faces filled screens around her command center. For a century, we've been the polite newcomers to the galactic community, she said. We've hidden our military capacity because our history taught us caution. The Coalition saw us as just another peaceful species, eager to join their ranks. She paused, looking at each face on the screens. But we are more than that. We evolved. On a high-gravity, high-oxygen world that forced us to become stronger, faster, more aggressive than most species. We survived our own violent history. We call Earth a garden world, but to most species in the galaxy, it would be a death world. Olivia brought up the images of the Nelvari survivors. These people cannot fight the Drakari. They evolved without predators, without war. But we know war. We understand fighting to protect others. This is why we built this fleet in secret. For this moment, when our strength would be needed. The captains listened in silence. The Drakari have never encountered humans in combat. Olivia continued. They don't know what we're capable of, they're about to learn. Across the solar system, one by one, the massive warships began to jump into hyperspace. To observers from the Coalition, it looked like Earth's entire industrial and research fleet had suddenly vanished. On the observation platform of the Galactic Coalition outpost, Ambassador Shirlvan watched with all 4 eyes as the strange readings came in from Sol system. What do you mean gone? The ambassador demanded. An entire fleet cannot simply disappear. Captain Ethan Graves stood nearby, his face carefully neutral. It appears they've all engaged their jump drives simultaneously. Very unusual. Where are they going? Shirlvan asked, a note of suspicion in their voice. Training exercises in the outer system according to their notification. Ethan replied smoothly, though it's odd they'd need so many ships. The ambassador's skin changed color slightly, a sign of agitation. Captain Graves, if you know anything about this unusual activity. I know only what I've told you, Ambassador, Ethan said. His face revealed nothing, but inside, a weight had lifted from his shoulders. Help was coming for the Nelvari. Finally, humanity would show its true nature, not just its capacity for violence, but its determination to protect the innocent. Light years away, the advanced scout ship USS Interceptor dropped out of hyperspace near Nelvari space. Captain Frank Donovan stood on the bridge looking at the stars of an unfamiliar region. Scan for Drakari ships, he ordered. 3 patrol vessels detected, responded his sensor officer. They're heading toward a small moon, likely another Nelvari settlement. Frank nodded. Battle stations. Let's introduce ourselves to the Drakari. The human fleet had awakened, and the galaxy was about to change forever. The USS Interceptor moved silently through space, its advanced stealth systems making it nearly invisible to standard scanners. Captain Frank Donovan stood on the bridge, watching the 3 Drakari patrol ships on the main screen. They were moving toward a small moon where the last remaining Nelvari settlement in this system was hiding. Time until they detect us? Frank asked. Lieutenant Nicole Bennett checked her tactical display. At current speed, 2 minutes, sir. Our stealth field can't hide us completely once we're within weapons range. Frank nodded. At 39, he had spent 20 years in Earth's hidden fleet, training for a day he wasn't sure would ever come. Now that day was here. What do we know about their ships? He asked. 3 patrol cruisers, sir, Nicole replied. Standard Drakari design, energy weapons, basic shields. According to our data, each ship carries about 50 crew members. Frank studied the alien vessels. They were bigger than the Interceptor, with curved hulls that reminded him of predatory fish. The Drakari themselves were reptilian hunters, evolved from ambush predators on their homeworld. Open a channel when we're in range, Frank ordered. Let's see how they respond to meeting humans for the first time. The bridge crew prepared for contact. Unlike the massive battleships coming behind them, the Interceptor was designed for scouting and first contact. Still, it carried weapons that were far more advanced than what the Coalition believed humans possessed. They've spotted us, sir, Nicole said. They're changing course to intercept. Frank straightened his uniform. Open the channel. The main screen flickered, then showed the bridge of the lead Drakari ship. The alien commander was tall and reptilian, with scaled skin in patterns of red and black. Its yellow eyes narrowed at the sight of Frank. Unknown vessel, the Drakari said, its words translated by the ship's computer. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed. Frank kept his face calm. This is Captain Frank Donovan of the Earth vessel Interceptor. We're responding to a distress call from the Nelvari people. The Drakari commander's head tilted slightly. Earth? I am not familiar with your species. We're members of the Galactic Coalition, Frank replied. A hissing sound came from the Drakari, their version of laughter. The Coalition does not interfere in frontier matters. You are lying. This area is under Drakari Empire control. Leave. Now or be destroyed. Frank's expression didn't change. We cannot do that. We are here to protect the Nelvari people. We ask you to withdraw your forces from this system. The Drakari commander's scales flared in anger. You dare to give orders to the Empire? 1 small ship against 3 of ours? More hissing laughter followed. What do you think you can do, human? This is your final warning, Frank said quietly. Leave Nelvari space. The Drakari commander cut the communication. On the tactical display, all 3 enemy ships powered up their weapons and began moving toward the Interceptor in attack formation. They've locked weapons on us, sir, Nicole reported. Shall I raise shields? Frank nodded. Shields up, weapons ready. Let's show them what humans can do. What happened next would later become legend among both the Nelvari and the Drakari. The Interceptor moved with a speed the Drakari had never seen in a ship that size. Before they could fire their first shots, the human vessel was behind them, firing precision strikes at their engines and weapon systems. Target their communications. First, Frank ordered, don't let them warn others. Nicole's fingers flew over her console. The interceptor's weapons, technology that humanity had kept hidden for a century, cut through the Drakari shields as if they were paper. The lead ship's communication array exploded in silence. First ship disabled, Nicole reported. Moving to the second. The Drakari ships tried to coordinate their attack, but they had never faced anything like human combat tactics. Within minutes, all 3 patrol ships were drifting, their engines and weapons disabled. "Sir, we're receiving emergency signals from the Nelvari settlement," said the communications officer. "They're asking if it's safe to come out of hiding." Frank looked at the disabled Drakari ships on his screen. "Tell them we're sending a team down, and prepare a boarding party for the lead Drakari vessel. I want to know what we're facing." Hour later, Lieutenant Nicole Bennett led a team of 6 humans down to the surface of the small moon. The higher gravity of Earth had made humans stronger than most species in the galaxy. Here on the low-gravity moon, they moved almost too easily, having to be careful not to jump too high or push too hard. The Nelvari watched from hiding as the humans approached. Slowly, one of them came forward. She was tall and slender, with 4 thin arms and large expressive eyes that showed both fear and hope. "I am Elena," she said through their translator. "Are you really here to help us?" Nicole nodded. "We are. My name is Lieutenant Bennett from Earth. We received your distress call." Elena looked confused. "But the Coalition said no one would come. They said we were outside their protection." "We're not here as the Coalition," Nicole explained. "We're here as humans. Our people don't stand by when genocide is happening." More Nelvari emerged from hiding. There were about 60 of them left in this settlement. They looked thin and scared. Many were injured. "The Drakari," Elena said quietly. "They will return with more ships. They always do." Nicole smiled. "We know. We're counting on it." Back on the interceptor, Frank received the first reports from the boarding party on the Drakari ship. The information was troubling. The Drakari Empire was much larger than they had thought, with hundreds of warships spread across 20 systems. "They've been expanding for decades," said his first officer. "The Nelvari are just their latest victims." Frank nodded grimly. "Send all this to Admiral Martinez. The main fleet will need this information." "Sir," called the sensor officer. "We're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures, large ships entering the system." Frank tensed but then relaxed as he recognized the signals. "It's our first battle group right on schedule." Outside the viewport, space seemed to ripple as 5 massive human warships emerged from hyperspace. Each was 3 times the size of the Drakari patrol vessels. Together, they formed just the first wave of Earth's fleet. On the Nelvari moon, the refugees watched in awe as the huge ships appeared in their sky. To them, it looked like giants had come to their rescue. "Your ships," Elena whispered to Nicole. "They're so big, so powerful. Why did your people hide such strength?" Nicole watched the warships positioning themselves around the moon, creating a protective formation. "Because we know how dangerous we can be," she said. "We wanted to be accepted for our peaceful achievements, not feared for our capacity for war." Elena looked confused. "But now we show another side of humanity," Nicole said. "The side that fights for those who cannot fight for themselves." Across the system, more human ships were arriving. And on the captured Drakari vessel, a message was being prepared to send to their empire. A warning about the new species they had encountered. A species from a high-gravity world. A species that moved too fast, thought too quickly, and fought too well. A species the galaxy would soon know as the Deathworlders. Rear Admiral Jason Morris watched the holographic display showing the Nelvari star systems. 23 planets and moons with Nelvari settlements were marked in blue. 17 were already under Drakari control, shown in red. The human fleet had secured only 2 systems so far. "We need to move faster," Jason said to his officers. "Every day more Nelvari die in those camps." At 52, Jason had gray hair and a reputation for unusual tactics. Now, he faced the biggest challenge of his career: rescuing an entire species while fighting an enemy no human had ever battled before. "Sir, the Drakari are moving their main fleet to protect their supply lines," reported his tactical officer. "They've figured out our strategy." Jason nodded. That was expected. The initial human attacks had targeted Drakari supply ships rather than their battle groups. It was a strategy from Earth's naval history: cut off the supplies, and the enemy would either retreat or be weakened when the real battle came. "Launch the second phase," Jason ordered. "I want our marine groups on those 4 central planets immediately. Colonel Lewis, are your people ready?" Colonel Catherine Lewis stood straighter. "Yes, sir. My Marines are prepared for ground deployment. We've studied the layout of the Drakari camps from our scout reports." "Good. Your priority is rescuing the Nelvari prisoners. We'll handle the Drakari ships in orbit." Catherine left to prepare her troops for deployment. At 45, she had trained special forces for 15 years. But this would be their first real combat mission against an alien enemy. In the ship's briefing room, she addressed the Marine teams, 100 men and women in advanced combat. Armor listened as she explained their mission. "The Nelvari are being held in forced labor camps on these 4 worlds," Catherine said, showing images on the screen. "The Drakari guards are not expecting a ground attack. They believe their orbital defenses will protect them." She moved to the next image, showing the reptilian Drakari soldiers. "Remember your training. Drakari are physically stronger than humans, but they move slower in standard gravity. Their reflexes are not as quick as ours. They rely on intimidation rather than tactical thinking." The Marines studied the enemy carefully. Most had never seen a real alien up close. "Our primary mission is to free the Nelvari prisoners," Catherine continued. "Secondary objective is to secure the planets for our fleet to use as forward bases." A young Marine raised his hand. "Ma'am, what about coalition observers? Are they monitoring our actions?" Catherine's face hardened. "Yes, the coalition has sent observers. They're watching but not interfering. Remember, what we do here will change how the galaxy sees humanity. Make sure they see us as liberators, not conquerors." Across the room, the Marines nodded. They understood the importance of this mission, not just for the Nelvari, but for humanity's future in the galaxy. Meanwhile, in the Drakari command center on their primary battleship, High Commander Zurgath received the reports of human attacks with growing anger. His scales flared red as he slammed his clawed hand on the table. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "These humans were unknown to us until days ago. Now they attack us everywhere at once." His officers looked down, afraid to meet his eyes. None wanted to be the bearer of more bad news. "Their ships move too fast," one officer finally said. "Their weapons cut through our shields, and they don't fight like any species we've encountered before," Zurgath hissed. "They are just another soft species from the Coalition. They cannot stand against the Empire." "Sir," another officer said hesitantly, "we've intercepted communication between their ships. The humans, they evolved on a high-gravity world. Their bodies are dense, their reactions quick, and they have been hiding their true military capabilities from the Coalition for decades." The command center fell silent. High-gravity worlds were rare. Species from such planets were always dangerous. Their bodies evolved to withstand pressures that would crush most other life forms. "Consolidate our forces," Zurgath ordered. "Pull back to our main colonies. Let them chase us across empty space while we prepare our real fleet." What the Drakari commander didn't know was that every word was being monitored by human intelligence. Ships. The humans were already moving to counter this strategy. Back at the Galactic Coalition headquarters, an emergency meeting was underway. Representatives from 30 species argued loudly about the human actions. Coalition observer Threl Mok, who had been secretly following the human fleet, presented his report. "The humans have revealed military technology far beyond what they disclosed when joining the Coalition," Threl Mok said. "Their ships are faster and more powerful than anything they showed us. They have violated our most sacred principle of non-interference." The Coalition chairman, Zix Vora, looked troubled. Why would they hide such capabilities? What else might they be concealing? Threlmok displayed images from the human marine deployment. They moved differently than other species, Watch how quickly they react, how easily they adapt to different gravity environments. They evolved as predators on a dangerous world. They are Deathworlders. The chamber fell silent. Most coalition species came from stable, peaceful planets. The concept of evolving on a world where survival itself was a daily challenge was alien to them. They must be stopped, someone finally said. If they succeed against the Drakari, what will prevent them from turning on us next? Back in Nelvari space, the human liberation began. Dropships descended toward the 4 central planets where the largest concentration camps were located. Colonel Catherine Lewis led the first wave to the surface of Nelvari Prime, the species' homeworld. The Drakari were completely unprepared for a ground assault. Their strategy had always been to control space and bombard any resistance from orbit. They had never faced an enemy who would deliberately land troops to engage in direct combat. Catherine's Marines moved through the Drakari defenses with a speed and coordination that shocked the reptilian soldiers. Human combat armor, designed to operate on high-gravity Earth, made them nearly unstoppable on the lighter Nelvari world. Team 3, secure the East Compound, Catherine ordered through her comlink. Team 2, with me to the central prison. Within hours, 3 of the largest camps were under human control. Thousands of Nelvari prisoners looked with wonder at their human liberators. Many were too weak to walk after months of hard labor and little food. As Catherine helped an elderly Nelvari to an evacuation ship, she noticed a group of children watching her from a distance. Unlike the adults, they seemed more curious than afraid. "It's okay," she said, kneeling down to their level. "We're here to help you." One small Nelvari stepped forward. "Are you really from another world? A world with monsters?" Catherine smiled. "Earth has some dangerous animals, yes, but it's also full of beauty. Maybe someday you can visit and see for yourself." As the liberation continued, Admiral Morris received a troubling report from Earth Command. The Coalition was considering formal sanctions against humanity for violating the non-interference principle. Some members were even calling for Earth's expulsion. "Let them talk," Jason said. "We'll face those consequences when the Nelvari are safe." Across Nelvari space, the human fleet continued its advance, and the Drakari, for the first time in their history of conquest, began to retreat. Fleet Admiral William Keller stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity as it entered orbit around the Drakari homeworld. At 63, William was the most senior military officer in Earth's fleet. His presence here signaled the final phase of the Nelvari liberation campaign. The main view screen showed hundreds of Drakari ships forming a defensive line around their planet. It was their last stand after 3 weeks of steady retreat across their empire. "Open a channel," William ordered. His deep voice carried the weight of authority earned through 40 years of service. The communications officer nodded. "Channel, open, sir." William straightened his uniform. "This is Fleet Admiral William Keller of the Earth Defense Force. I speak to the leadership of the Drakari Empire. Your forces have committed genocide against the Nelvari people. This is your one opportunity to surrender and face justice. Refuse, and we will have no choice but to dismantle your military completely." For several long moments there was no response. Then the screen flickered to show a Drakari in ornate armor. His scales were darker than others they had seen, with gold patterns indicating high rank. "I am Supreme Warlord Krazuthul of the Drakari Empire," the alien said. "We do not recognize your authority, human. The Nelvari were weak. The weak do not deserve to exist in this galaxy." William's expression remained neutral. "That philosophy ends today. You have 1 hour to begin powering down your weapons. After that, we will consider your answer a refusal." He cut the transmission and turned to his officers. "Prepare all ships for combat, but hold fire until my command." Meanwhile, in the Galactic Coalition Council chambers, an emergency session was underway. Diplomatic Officer Laura Chen stood before representatives of 30 alien species, many of whom were calling for Earth's expulsion from the Coalition. At 39, Laura had spent her career building relationships with alien species. Now she had to defend humanity's actions in breaking the Coalition's most sacred rule of non-interference. "The evidence is clear," said the Centaurian representative. Earth concealed its military capabilities. It violated our non-interference principle. It acted unilaterally in a border conflict. Laura nodded. We do not deny these actions. What we ask is that you consider why we took them. She activated a holographic display showing the Nelvari camps. This is what the Drakari were doing. Systematic extermination of an entire species. When we received their distress call, we had a choice. Follow the Coalition's rules or follow our conscience. The council chamber grew quiet as Laura showed more evidence collected during the liberation. Mass graves, torture facilities, children separated from families. Earth joined the Coalition in good faith, Laura continued. We shared our science, our art, our culture. But we could not share a policy that would have us stand by while genocide occurred beyond an arbitrary border. The Coalition chairman Zixivora leaned forward. You hid your true capabilities from us. How can we trust you now? Laura looked directly at the chairman. We hid our capacity for war because we wanted to be judged by our capacity for peace. History taught us that powerful species are often feared rather than welcomed. At that moment, a new figure entered the chamber. It was Nelvari Elder Thyron, brought from his homeworld to speak to the council. The elderly alien moved slowly, still recovering from months in a Drakari camp. I wish to address the council, Thyron said, his voice weak but determined. The chairman nodded, and the chamber fell silent. My people were dying, Thyron began. We sent calls for help to every species we knew. Only the humans answered. He looked around the chamber. Your coalition spoke of principles and rules while our children starved in camps. Thyron moved closer to the center of the room. You ask why humans hid their strength? Perhaps they saw what I now see. A galaxy where the powerful make rules that protect themselves but abandon others. The room was silent as the elder's words hung in the air. I have one question for this council, Thyron said finally. If humans hadn't come, who would have saved us? No one answered. Back at the Drakari homeworld, the hour had passed. The Drakari ships had not powered down their weapons. Instead, they had moved into attack formation. They've chosen to fight, Admiral Keller said quietly. Begin the operation. What followed was not the brutal battle the Drakari expected. Instead of attacking their ships head-on, the human fleet executed a complex maneuver that Earth naval historians would have recognized from ancient battles. They bypassed the main Drakari force, focusing instead on their command ships and communication arrays. Within hours, the Drakari fleet was in chaos. Unable to coordinate, individual ships either surrendered or were disabled by precise human strikes. Not a single civilian target on the planet was hit. By the end of the day, the Supreme Warlord's ship was surrounded. The Drakari Empire, which had terrorized its neighbors for decades, had fallen in less than a month to a species they had never heard of before. In the aftermath, human marines secured the Drakari government buildings. Evidence of war crimes was collected. Nelvari prisoners on Drakari worlds were freed. And throughout Coalition space, species watched in amazement as humanity revealed its true nature, not just their capacity for war, but their insistence on justice rather than revenge. 2 weeks later, Fleet Admiral Keller stood before the Coalition Council alongside Diplomatic Officer Laura Chen. They had been summoned to hear the Council's decision regarding Earth's actions. The chairman spoke, formally. Earth has violated our principles of non-interference. You have hidden your true capabilities. These are serious breaches of trust. William and Laura stood silently, waiting. However, the chairman continued. Elder Thyron's testimony has forced us to confront uncomfortable truths about our own policies. The Nelvari genocide happened because we chose not to see beyond our borders. The chamber grew quiet. Therefore, this council has decided not to expel Earth from the Coalition. Instead, we propose a new committee to re-examine our non-interference policy with Earth and the Nelvari as founding members. Laura stepped forward. We accept this decision, but Earth also has terms of its own. The council members shifted uncomfortably. It was unprecedented for a species to place demands after violating Coalition rules. Earth will no longer hide its military capabilities, Laura said. We will maintain our fleet openly, and we will respond to distress calls from any species facing extinction, whether they are coalition members or not. William added, we evolved on a world that Earth scientists classify as a death world, a planet with high gravity, extreme climate variations, and both predators and diseases that forced us to become stronger, faster, and more adaptable than most species. He looked around the chamber. But what truly makes humans Deathworlders is not our physical strength. It's our refusal to accept the death of the innocent when we have the power to prevent it. The council debated for hours, but in the end, they agreed to Earth's terms. A new era in galactic politics had begun, one where humanity's hidden strength was now in the open. On the newly liberated Nelvari homeworld, children looked up at the stars with different eyes. Their world had been saved by beings from a planet so dangerous that most species would die within hours of landing there. A planet that produced people who crossed the galaxy to fight for strangers. A single word had spread among the Nelvari to describe their saviors, Deathworlders. But to them, it was not a term of fear. It was a name of hope.